All right. What's happening? It is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. I'm just strapping in here. Got a couple people in already. What's up? The three of you right now. What's going on? We're going to give this about, 90 seconds or so, maybe a minute. And then we're going to kind of break things down. But tonight we were talking about, just got back from Madison, Wisconsin, the 2024 official Strongman Games. It was an awesome time. I achieved a very big goal of mine that I set a year ago of making the finals. And I am honestly just absolutely ecstatic that that happened. So we're going to talk about the event as a whole. We're going to talk about some of the other winners and noteworthy things that happened over the weekend. We'll do a breakdown of some of the events. And then I'm going to kind of give you some of my personal notes on the things that I did and implemented over the entirety of the year in order to make the finals. So lots of cool things to talk about. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will be happy to answer and, dig into those as we move along, but gives about 15 more seconds and then we will start this party off. So 2024 official Strongman Games. Once again, it was in Madison this year. Let's just start with the venue. I really liked, it's the Veterans Memorial Coliseum at the Alliant Energy Center, which is just a complex. Has some fields out there, just sort of like a convention center type feel. The CrossFit Games championships and finals has been there a couple times. So that's pretty cool because I have seen that a handful of times on TV, ESPN, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Some very famous moments have gone down in there. So it's cool to be able to participate in a great venue. I thought the venue and the setting was a significant upgrade from Charleston, West Virginia last year, even though it was freezing and we had some snow flurries for that first night. So let's just kind of get right into, I want to talk a little bit about the event itself, and then I'll give you some of my personal feelings and analysis for my performance. So really good time. Weigh-ins went great Thursdays. There's also the teen, junior, and adaptive exhibition on Thursday. So pretty cool. And I have to give a lot of credit to Lynn and the OSG team because they're in the building. They're getting things going on Thursday for all the athletes to come through, check in, and do the thing. So to give some opportunities to teens and juniors and the adaptive was pretty incredible. I saw one guy strapped in a wheelchair doing sandbag to shoulder. He was also doing circus dumbbell. Saw one arm, one leg people doing deadlifts, logs, really cool. And you never really know. It's hard to say because you just don't know, but I think we're going to see a couple of these kids go on to be really, really big time. The most noteworthy thing from the teens was Bubba Pritchett, who's gained a bit of a following online over the last few years first off, he's the son of Jerry Pritchett, one of the best American strongmen of all time. But also the kid is just turned 14 and he's freaking strong, man. He's deadlifting in the 5s. He's doing yoke runs in the 6s. And he is competing and often beating 16-year-olds. So to see that is pretty incredible. And he actually is freaking gigantic. Jerry Pritchett's got to be 6'3", 6'4", maybe. And Bubba Pritchett at 14 is almost as tall as him. So that was kind of shocking because, not only is he a super strong kid, definitively the strongest 14-year-old on the entire planet right now, but he's huge. So if he keeps it up, and there's no reason why he won't, he could be a world's strongest man champion. He could be one of the very, very best if he keeps his trajectory going. And I think that he will. So moving on into Friday, let's talk about the first couple of events. Now, the way that they had this set up this year, which I really personally enjoyed as an athlete, and I think is a great move for fans and spectators as well, is it was broken into classes, right? So you would have the Masters 40 plus, both men and women would do the first two events together. So historically, you had, let's say we had event 1, which was the Monster Log Challenge. You would have, all the women go through and then all the men, and then you would do event 2 later in the day. But instead, you would have the Masters 40 plus women come do the monster log, then the Masters 40 plus men do the monster log, and then that group would go into event two. So the women would do the car walk, and then the men would do the car walk. And I thought that was a great idea, but also intelligently planned because both of those events were staged and ready to go for each of those groups. So the monster log, this is something I had a feeling going in would happen. What you ended up seeing is that a lot of people ended up kind of shooting themselves in the foot or like really kind of sinking their chances really early on with going for that heavy monster log. That being said, you also had a few people who had great performances that vaulted them many places up. So what happened here was this Trump log situation where you have a heavy log and a light log. So you could choose one or the other. One single rep at the heavy option trumps, that's why it's called that, any amount of reps at the light log. So for example, my training was going really well. I had a shot at the 280, but I actually opted to go for that light log because I was seeing a lot of people miss reps on that 280. And so just to secure points whatsoever, I took that lighter option, got some great points that allowed me to go further into the competition. And you had some great people that were zeroing. Now, one of the most interesting things, I see that Carrie Ann is here. Carrie Ann's in the Masters, also a finalist here. She was telling me when we were getting out to there, the perspective when you're up in your log front rack, looking all the way up at the top of the arena was very bizarre and would throw you off a little bit. And, conceptually, I understood that, but wow, kind of trippy because, it's a big dome arena, rounded, but however many feet high it was several hundred. It just gave this really kind of skewed perspective that gave me a hard time, thinking about a focal point to fix my eyes on, and it threw me off a little bit. So I've never experienced anything like that. And just speaking to the fellow competitors, a lot of other people felt the same way. So it really kind of shook things up a whole lot. But I'm going to give you an example, right? I'm just going to kind of talk about, let's see, the 80 class. So when we're talking about this event, I said there were a lot of zeros. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 zeros on that fourth event out of, I guess that would be 36 ended up being total in there. So, and that's really outrageous because it's not that these guys are not capable of hitting some of these weights. It wasn't that at all. I think the perspective threw things off a lot too, but also for the weight classes, you're dealing with weight cuts. How did you refeed, rehydrate, and get back to baseline after that? So it's always interesting to have one of those heavier log options or something like that out the gate because it really, like I said, it impacted people's entire competition performance very strongly right out the gate. But really impressive. So just kind of looking through some of the biggest performances there. I mean, geez, you had 5 reps. Dylan Thompson got 5 reps on the heavy log at 280. Absolutely incredible. You have one more guy from Canada, Sam LaChance, hit 5 reps at the 380. And we're talking about when you weigh in at a body weight of 175, that is just absolutely incredible, man. I mean, it's just truly amazing. So some really incredible performances there. Moving in next, we had my personal favorite event of the weekend, the car walk. Now, I did not know this at the time, but these are actually the exact same cars that were used at the World's Strongest Man this past year in Myrtle Beach. So pretty sweet. Now, one thing that was interesting about this is that when we were getting our heights set up, there was weights in the car. So you did not have the opportunity to take any steps or even pick it up off the ground. Now, as you know, or you should know, every yoke, no matter what you do, is going to be a little bit different. Where the holes are spaced, this and that. So you need to try to be as uniform as possible when you are selecting your yoke height when you're doing training runs and also at competitions. But for me, I like to go about 53 inches. There was not really anywhere that was 53 inches on it. So I opted for going slightly lower because not knowing how much that car would move about, I wanted to give myself a little bit of extra wiggle room so that if there's any tipping, this or that, I have more clearance room on the tires. And that's another thing that I think probably threw a lot of people off. If you watched, not just because the yokes were heavy, but there's a pretty good amount of drops. And I think if some people gave themselves more clearance room, then we would have had a lot more clean runs. But personally, I really liked the way that this yoke felt. There was like the top of a typical yoke frame, but immediately outside the uprights that the crossbar is attached to, there were poles out here. So normally I like to have my hands on the uprights pretty high, but I was able to grip down and get like a full squeeze on the handle instead of having like a little bit of like a false grip, on the uprights. So I personally really liked the way that this felt. Now, I like to teach yokes to people to have your hands as high up as possible so that you can create a nice big squeeze back shelf and have a hard brace starting from your upper back all the way down. A lot of people see these larger World's Strongest Man contestants have their hands really, really low on a yoke. So by default, you see a lot of smaller athletes do the same thing, but they're not connecting that these bigger athletes do not have the mobility or just the frame to get their hands like higher up, right? So watching a lot of my other competitors go, I think it created a lot of instability because with those hands lower, you want to typically think you're like pushing the yoke forward. But because this was such a different yoke, that created a lot of wiggling and wobbling back and forth, which is just not the same on a normal yoke. So it was really cool. The one thing that I personally loved the most is on the inside of one of the car doors, when I went to check them out at the venue, we have Martins Lisi's, Iron Bibby, Mitch Hooper, and Tom Stoltman had all signed the inside of one of the car doors. So just like seeing that little piece of history and like having that connection to those guys who are amongst the very best in the entire world. Of course, Hooper, Stoltman, and Lisi's 3 World's Strongest Man champions. Like, what a sick connection. And that's why I like doing these things like the official Strongman games, because it allows me to celebrate in the ritual and highest, best parts of Strongman with some of those guys. So more on that a little later, but awesome. I love that car yoke. I personally did not really feel like it was harder than a yoke. Some of the other guys warming up in back that had done this before was mixed answers as far as whether the car itself would feel heavier or lighter than like a standard Rogue yoke that we were warming up on. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is I think that people were warming up really way too early for this one and maybe like a little bit too heavy. So our yoke weight was 730 pounds. And I saw some guys even working up to like 750. Now, in my opinion, I think you really need to save your effort for that big, big, big heavy load. You really shouldn't be maxing out your nervous system before you go out there, especially when your adrenaline is really high. You're very stimulated and activated. If you're going to be doing any sort of like heavy picks whatsoever, it should be just to like pick up the weight, feel it on your back, and maybe take a couple of steps. But I'm going to come back to that when I talk a little bit more about my personal performance. But let's keep moving on. Awesome event. Loved the car walk. Amazing. Want to give a shout out to Andrew Nicholson in my class who had like just over 10-second time, who beat everybody else by a good like half a second or maybe even a full second. Hats off, man. That was a great run. Moving into Saturday, we had the axle deadlift, same as the log where we had a trump option and a light option. There's a pretty big disparity in a lot of these classes. Like I think it was 540 and 630 for my class. You ended up having Rich Molnar do 10 reps at 640 at a 175 or 80 kilo body weight. That's pretty incredible. You also had John Hack do 9 reps without a suit. Absolutely incredible. Mark Felix, I believe, hit 10. Incredible. So really cool to see a lot of a big display of strength. Now, one thing that was throwing a lot of people off on this is in the rules meeting, Lynn had stated that there was no center marking on the axle. Now, this was a smooth, at least it was coated, but not knurled axle. So Lynn had said that there wasn't a center knurling or marking. There was. It was teeny, teeny, tiny. You had to like really like zone in and focus in order to see it. But we actually saw a pretty decent amount of injuries and back issues after this one because people were lining up to one side or another. Now, as I keep talking about all these things, just kind of remember that with Strongman, it's about how you do over the course of all of these events and keep your body fresh for the entire thing. So when we were going into something like the sandbag carry, we've already had a lot of low back fatigue from the yoke the day before. And if you just get a little slip here or there on something like a heavy axle deadlift, that's going to really impact your ability to be quick on a sandbag run. So the axle deadlift was awesome. Really, really good. Amazing. Just love it. Love good hard axle deadlifts. I learned some things there. I ended up only getting 3 on the heavy option. And personally, that was a bit of an underperformance for me. But something I'll throw out there is I watched Finley Mercer go before me, who got 4 reps on this one. I mean, Finley's a really great deadlifter as is, but he did 2 doubles. He did a double, rested about 10, 15 seconds, and then went in for another double. So that was kind of an interesting technique, which, thinking about it makes sense. But if I were to see something like that, a really heavy option again, where I think I'm capable of 4, 5, 6 reps, then I'm probably going to try out a technique like that in training and just see how it goes. So pretty cool. A lot of really big scores on that one. And that moved us into the sandbag medley. So we had a sandbag carry 50 feet, drop into a sled, run back Husafel sandbag, carry 50 feet, drop into the sled, and then a sled push back. Now, if you didn't see what these sleds look like, they were really neat. They were very wide and also kind of like half of a box, and they had these handles on the back. It was a bit of a puzzle to figure out the right way to push this sled. So what ended up looking like the best option for this was, since you had these big handles in the back, you wanted to dig your chest into it, reach and hook your arms around, and to get it started, lift the back of the sled to generate a little bit of momentum. But once you got it going, you actually wanted to lower it, keep your weight into it, and keep pushing forward, which a lot of us figured this out kind of about halfway through. So I really think I could have saved a couple of seconds on there, but live and learn. I thought the event was great. A little bit of personal redemption for me because I really bobbled the Husafel sandbags that we had last year. Last year, they were Go Ruck Husafels. They call them tombstones, but they were basically bigger and wider. And when I got my pick, it was really low on my thighs. So that was a big personal win for me to get a good smooth pick up on the chest, carry, and go. Another one that was really, really close in time. So if you're somebody that wants to, be good at strongman, you need to consider that going into something like a sandbag medley, only a handful of seconds are really going to save you, or score you rather, a lot of points. So for example, let's see. So I did my run in 41 seconds. Not my best performance, actually my worst one of the entire weekend, but I got 20th place by going 41 seconds. But let's put this for consideration. If I were to have done this 7 seconds faster, then I would have gotten 5th place in the event. So we're talking about very fine margins on this one. Really very fine, and let's see, first place, I think, Chris Harper, nope, Tommy Lovell smoked it. So, it's only 11 seconds off the lead, but 7 seconds would have jumped me 15 places. So you really got to make sure that you're focusing and doing everything you can on those medleys. And I'll go ahead and say it. That's my biggest opportunity to make up points next year if we have some sort of medley like that. There tends to be one of those almost every single time. So I'll be doing what I can to earn some points on that. Now, moving into the finals. Awesome. Once again, really cool. I made the finals. I got 19th last year, made the big jump all the way up into 9th. So really cool. We had the sandbag throws, the wrecking ball hold, and the stone series. Now, everybody knows a good bit about the sandbag throws and the Atlas stones. So if you have any questions about those, I'd be happy to field it. Please drop in the chat, but I'm not really going to cover those. What I am going to cover is the wrecking ball hold, because that was a specialty or a new event this year. Now, the wrecking ball hold, a lot of us sort of knew this going in, that the best approach would be to try and ramp it against your thighs as much as possible, right? So you want it to be as little of a grip event as you could, and instead just rest the weight, kind of pinned hands into your pubic bone if you could. Now the thing is they did sort of explicitly tell us not to do that, but it did not seem like that was being enforced in judging. What I did like about the event is that from the second it released, you were feeling that weight. It was hard. It was a good hard heavy hold, and you can really feel. You could feel it in the handle whether your ball was spinning or swaying back and forth. Like you felt it. It was a cool, interesting, unique challenge, which was awesome. You saw some big outliers on some of that event, which is fun. The only thing that I have to say about it is that I thought it was absolutely boring. And I'm not just saying that because I didn't do that well. Um, but live and learn. Like if I come back again, I know exactly how to attack that thing. It just took, it was about 90 minutes behind schedule on that. And after like the first couple of rounds, gets a little less exciting. When they have it at something like Giants Live and you have 10 people to fly through, like no problem. But overall, it looked cool. It just was kind of boring, in my opinion. But hey, cool. I am here for innovation. I think that innovation is what we're looking for. So anytime we try to come up with some sort of new event, something that's different, something that is trying to be exciting, like I absolutely support that. Right. So that's kind of my quick overview of some of the events. A couple of the outlying things I want to talk about in some of the classes. Filip Zajek from the Czech Republic, 19 years old, absolutely obliterated everybody in that 90 kilo class. That kid's got a bright future if he keeps with it. No reason why he won't. Good for him. Now, that 90 kilo class is one of the most contested and hardest competition, like toughest fields I've ever seen for any competition in strongman ever. You had somewhere about like 20, maybe the top 20 were all people that have podiumed at something like a OSG Europes or OSG World Finals or Pro Strongman League, America's Strongest Man. And you had some incredible people actually miss the cut. I mean, CJ Kraus won Chaos. Derek Owens was third last year, second at America's Strongest Man. Nikolai Myers, former winner, he missed the cut. Josh Lancaster, awesome, missed the cut. Andrew Pepio, former America's Strongest Man, he missed the cut. Brett Fain, amazing strongman, he missed the cut. So it was really incredible to watch that class because, you had a couple other people that were kind of in the mix. I actually met this guy, John Tibbs, who was he's an elite powerlifter that came in and ended up getting 18th overall in his third strongman show ever. He ended up getting 2 reps on the axle dead and 4 on the monster log. So his strength was incredible. And he had a great performance, but he's going against some absolutely stud lifters. I mean, John Hag, not to mention, he's probably the best power lifter of all time. He ended up getting the top finish. Incredible. I mean, that was just one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my entire life. Just the talent in that class is unbelievable. Once I give a big shout out to Dylan Thompson from the US. Dylan was third last year at OSG, and I've seen him at a couple shows over this year. Kind of had a feeling that he would go on and win this thing for the 80 kilos, and he did. So hats off to Dylan. He had an absolutely incredible performance across the board. I mean, beating Josh Kowalewski, Tommy Lovell, Chris Harper, and all these other guys is no small feat. So I have nothing but absolute respect for Dylan because he just did phenomenal, and he absolutely deserved that win. You once again had a couple women do double events. So you had Camilla Fogagnalo from Australia, I believe, won one class and got third in another. And you also had Claire Myler get 2 podium spots again in 2 different competitions. So to see some of these things, man, is incredible. And this is why we go to shows like the official Strongman Games, is to see these stud outliers and to see the best in the entire world. I mean, heck, the open division even had several World's Strongest Man competitors and finalists. Spencer Remick, I think, got 7th overall. And that's not, that's not anything against him. That just goes to show you how good, the level of competition was. Nick Guardione ended up taking the win. Good for him. But man, what an absolutely stacked lineup. So really cool. Cosme Gonzalez, what's an event that you hope to see in the future? What's an event I hope to see in the future? Yeah, I've never gotten to do like a heavy anchor drag. Like that's one thing I always thought was pretty cool in like the old school World's Strongest Man or some sort of like big chain drag. I don't know if that's going to be feasible or anything, but that was the first thing good answer that came to mind. I of course love truck pulls. I'm very good at those. They're really fun. I don't know how feasible that is for like an OSG when you have 400 athletes, but that would probably be my two. Some sort of vehicle pull and some sort of like anchor heavy drag or something. We had a backward sled drag last year, but it was not heavy whatsoever. And I didn't really love the fact that I slipped on the floor at the end. So if it was something heavier, I would love to. Um, I'd love to see that. Yeah, truck pull would be cool. They'd have to do more preliminary stuff for the final. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Keg throws, love keg lifts, lots of cool things that we could do there. So, guys, if you got any more questions, please fire away. I'm going to keep rolling here as we get into some other factors. I didn't really talk much about like some of my personal performances, but I'm going to save that for another time on this. But I want to talk about kind of some bigger picture concepts on this as we're going in. So to let you know where I was at, if you don't know at all, so I got 19th last year, and I actually entered by doing the online qualifier. So I've got pretty good static strength. It was a farmer's hold, a deadlift 2 rep max, and an overhead anyway max weight. So, with something like that for me, I was able to game that pretty well and have good attempts. But it is just not the same as actually being in competition. So what I want to talk about is, last year I made 19th, and when I left, it really like was an eye opener. This is something that you can only experience by being there. You can watch this even in the stands. You do not understand the caliber of competition that you're working against. I mean, when these guys are right next to you, like busting their balls, it like really is kind of I'll just say intimidating the first time because everybody's so freaking good, and if you're not used to it, it's like really quite a shock. So the goal when I left last year, finishing 19th, was to make the finals. So here's kind of the plan that I made out, the things that I did over this year in order to make this big jump. I'm just saying that, I'm open to be proven wrong. I don't have to be right about this, but when I look at the results from this year to last year, I don't know if anybody made as much improvement and as much progress as I did. Going from 19th to 9th, in my opinion, over a harder field than last year is something I'm extremely proud of. We had Jonas finish 10th in our final. He was great, awesome. He came down from 16th, so great job. But it took some work. So here are the things that, again, bigger picture concepts of what you might need to do in order to make a lot of progress. Okay, so kind of first thing is accept where you are objectively without any judgment, fault, or blame whatsoever. Okay, that can be pretty hard, and a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people do not want to admit their shortcomings. A lot of people don't want to admit that they might be wrong or they might not be anywhere near as good as they think they are. And that's a bitter pill to swallow. But when you do, you get to objectively find the path and the road forward. If you're looking for this like mountaintop and you think that you're starting at X, you're just going to have a horrible plan from the beginning because you're not actually following the path that you need to follow. You might actually be at the very, very bottom of the mountain when you think you're at base camp. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done. But when you know that, then you can get the right supplies and prepare the right way and make the right strategy plans. So that's really number one, is be 100% honest with where you are. Last year, I failed a 160 circus dumbbell, which put me in 31st overall after the overhead pressing event. Terrible, not good. And that's okay. I just had to really do a lot of work on my overheads. So this year on the log, I finished 17th. That's a really big placing because together with my coach, we knew that we had to attack that very, very specifically. We had to get better on my overheads. Okay. That kind of rolls right into number two. Once you accept where you are, you have to identify the successful traits and habits that you need to get better. Right? What does that look like? That's going to be a little different for everybody. For me, right, if I'm going to be in an 80-kilo lightweight class, there's a few things that needed to happen. One, I needed to lean out and add a lot more muscle mass. I just was not as physically built as I needed to be last year in order to be a top guy. And in my opinion, I'm still not. I still have more work to do there. When you're looking at guys like Dylan, that one, Josh, Dean McVie, Chris Harper, these guys are all units, So for somebody like me, I'm going to have to put on even a little bit more muscle mass and probably come in a little leaner and slightly lighter next year, which I'm going to do. It's just that simple. Do these people that are successful at the very top, do you think they slack on their recovery? Do you think they slack on their sleep? No, absolutely not. So why would you? And that all comes back to identifying where you are right now without judgment, fault, or blame. And if you don't know what's holding you back, if you're not getting the results that you need, that's cool. Hire somebody that can tell you what it is, right? When I hired my coach, Max, he roasted me for the first 6 months about how tight I was. He called me world's tightest man. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't care. Roast me all you want. If you're helping me get there, I'm in. Let's go. When I got closer to this competition, I was not doing as good of a job as I wanted to of cutting down weight. So I hired a nutritionist. We got it done. It's just that simple. I could sit around and pretend like I was getting close, but the number on the scale didn't lie. So I put my, nutrition over in the hands of Will Clark, and he did a great job. You need to work harder and longer than you think you need to. A lot of people think that they're going to show up and become world champion within a year or two or three. Sometimes you get people like that Philip Zizek who show up at 19 and crush it. Chances are that that's not you. If you're not there already, you're not going to be there. So you got to work harder, do more reps, and do it a lot longer than you think you need to. But that all comes down to enjoying the process. If you hate it, then you shouldn't be doing it. So how can you find, joy in the little things that get you the results? For me, I love to train. I love how far I've come and all the work that I'm putting in. So it's very easy for me. But you got to find something that keeps you motivated and keeps you going, because you probably have to do much, 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 much more than you think that you need to. All right, number 5, compete at a high level. You have to go out and have good competition to push you to get better. You cannot just run around at the local comps and compete in your own garage gym all the time if you want to compete with the very best in the entire world. As I said, the number one thing that stood out to me the most last year when I had my first OSG was, man, these guys are freaking good, dude. It's crazy. These guys are so good. And I never competed against people that were that good ever. So what I ended up having to do was set a plan to go out and face good, tough competition. So my plan this year was to go to South Carolina Strongest Man in April. That's a Strongman Corp regional. And the United States Strongman Nationals. That was a field of 50 people, very competitive. I went to the Southeast Regionals for OSG, good, tough field. And then I came back to OSG. So I had 3 more competitions under my belt of good, tough competition, plus, of course, OSG last year. So now by the time that I came back around, I had literally 4 times more high-level competitive experience than I did the year before. So it's very important that you get used to that because, 1, like I said, it's intimidating when you see it for the first time. 2, you don't understand how hard you can push yourself until you've been pushed, and you have to do that. Three, it's just a confidence boost. You know that you belong if you show up and apply yourself. And this kind of rolls back to the top. Let's say you go to these high level competitions and you're getting your ass kicked, then you got to reset, accept where you are right now objectively without judgment, fault, or blame. Identify the successful traits and habits that you need to get better. And if you can't do yourself, hire somebody. So it always comes back to that, like, assess critically and objectively without judgment. Why are you getting these results, whether they're good or they're bad? And do something about it. When you're choosing these high level competitions, you can't cherry pick competitions. You can't just go do the ones that really favor you. Like a lot of people, more so at the lower levels, say, I'm not going to do that one because I'm going to zero it. I had a chance of, I missed that circus dumbbell over and over and over again at OSG last year. But because I went for that 160, I was able to hit a huge PR on the circus dumbbell at nationals the next time it came around. And I'm pretty good at it, but that's only because I forced myself to go into something where I had a chance to absolutely fail. And that's what's going to make you a better competitor. Like, a lot of people just go for the things that they're good at. That doesn't really challenge you. So what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. Guys, I see your questions. I got a few more and then I'm going to get right to them. But thank you for asking. I got you though. I got four more things. We're on number 7 now. Control the controllables. Listen, you cannot change the weather. You cannot change the events. You cannot change what your competition is doing. You cannot change so many things, but you can control and change your training, your attitude, the foods you put in, the way you recover, the way you warm up, the way you live your life. It's just that simple. When you're getting ready for a big competition, you need to control the controllables. And this is the biggest one is, in my opinion, food. I think a lot of people do a very poor job at rehydrating and refueling going into these competitions. I saw some of my competition like going out for wings, or I saw one of them eating concession stand food the day before the competition. And, that same individual who was eating concession stand food was blaming their poor performance on other things after it happened. And that's just one little thing where, again, I don't think that person is being objective about what's going on here, because I've seen it a handful of times in the past from the very same person where they're making poor decisions of things that are in their control. I can control what time I go to sleep. I can control how much movement I'm doing to keep my body fresh and not stiff. I can control and go to the grocery store. If I don't have a rent a car, I can go get an Uber and do whatever. I can go get the shit that I need. I can make sure that I'm at the venue the time when I want. I can make sure that I warm up the way that I want. It's all those things, right? One thing goes wrong this way or that way, or something gets tough. I can control that I'm in a good mood and I'm happy and I'm grateful to be there, which is going to give me better performance instead of just walking around bitter, pissed, and angry and acting like I'm fucking better than everybody else. A lot of people do that. It's crazy. So control the controllables. Seems simple, but it's not. Moving on, visualize your success. You need to see yourself as successful. You need to believe that you are going to show up and do the thing correctly, because let's start on the opposite end. If you're going to go into an event with a lot of nerves and jitters, it's just anxiety, and that's going to ruin your performance. So let's say you have something that you might potentially zero anyways. Like, it's okay to know and understand that you might zero, but what if you did really well? What if, it went amazing? What if it went absolutely incredible? How good would that feel? You're going to have a better mojo and better performance if you expect things to go well than if you are thinking like, shit, it's just going to be so tough and so hard for me. There's a lot of guys that set a lot of big personal bests and PRs at this competition because they had a good attitude and they visualized themselves being successful. Matt Bridge from New Zealand hit the 280 log had never done that weight ever in his entire life, and he hit 3 reps on it. He was not going to be able to do that if he went in, visualizing that weight was going to be too heavy for him. It just would not have happened, right? So visualize yourself and see and feel yourself as successful. Very simple. 2 more. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Are you gonna talk the talk or walk the walk? It's just that simple. This covers a lot of the stuff that we already went over, such as like, do you have the successful traits and habits that a good competitor has? That means, do you go to high-level competitions? Do you challenge yourself, or do you do the opposite, just cherry pick competitions? That's not what a good strength athlete does. A strength athlete does not stay within their inner circle, go to cherry picked competitions, and just run their mouths online. They accept who they are, where they are, and they work hard to get better. Right? Number 10, last one. Then I will get to some of your questions, guys. I appreciate it. Create your own luck. Create your own luck. This one, I think, is very undervalued. You create your own luck by kind of stacking all these things that I talked about earlier. If you're prepared, if you visualize and see and feel yourself as successful, if you're nice, if you have a good attitude, if you're friendly to your competition, and you continue to show up to these high level shows, you're just going to have more things just magically kind of go your way. That's just the way things go, especially in strongman. When you have judges that are human, there's a human element of that judge might not really like you if you're an asshole, which might subconsciously cause them to be a little slower on the stopwatch. This is a real thing. So this is another thing, control the controllables. You cannot control how quick that judge is, on their button. But if they like you and they subconsciously want to see you do well, even if they're trying to be as objective as possible, you might get lucky. You might create your own luck. That's just kind of how it goes. So when you chase opportunities, you have a good attitude, you're friendly, you really work hard for it, you just get lucky. If you're somebody that runs your mouth all the time, smack talks people, cherry picks competitions, eats concession stand food, maybe you're going to get the shits in the middle of one of your lifts, and you've never had that happen before. That's bad luck, right? So there's a lot more that I could say, but that was kind of the list of 10 things that I really focused on personally in order to get me, to this higher level. So thank you, Waltzilla. Good to see you, brother. So a few questions I'm going to field here. How do you guys handle if they coach a guy and are in the same competition themselves? So good question. I think that's kind of different per the individual, because I didn't have anybody that I was coaching per se. But listen, man, it would be freaking sweet to be with a team of people. It'd be so awesome. Ultimately, right, the onus is on the individual as the competitor to be ready and prepared going in. But I did not have my coach there. I was talking with him, on and off throughout the weekend. But I was also, just being a very observant, good athlete and paying attention to what everybody was talking about of what were good strategies, what were things to look for, how do I approach this type of event. So some coaches do really, really well when they are competing themselves and have athletes to coach, and others do pretty poorly because sometimes they're very self-absorbed, or sometimes they are not self-absorbed enough. It's a fine balance that you have to walk, because I do believe that you have to be selfish to a degree as a competitor. I stayed with a couple other guys that were competing at the Airbnb, and unfortunately I had to go back. Chase Provost, very sorry, brother, if you're listening at all. I had to go back and get my rest so that I could eat, fuel, and be ready for myself on day one. But that's not my client. It's not, it's my boy. Love him. I support him. But you have to kind of walk that line of, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, number one. I don't know if I answered that very well, but guys can handle themselves pretty decently, or they can just be shit. That depends on the individual if you're an athlete and a coach at the same time. Um, Cosme is asking, who from America's Strongest would you like to see next year in the 80s? I was kind of bummed personally that Quinn Ramasco did not make it this year. So that's really kind of like my big answer there, because Quinn won America's Strongest, Strongman Corp Nationals, and Pro Strongman League. So I was hoping to see him at this competition. Who's the oh man, 80 kg HP guy? Henny, I think is his name is. He seems pretty cool. I've never met him personally, but would be cool to see him out there. And then, anybody. I would like to see as many people as we can get in on there, but would like to see Quinn Ramasco, because I think that guy's really cool. He had a great run all year long. So that is kind of my answer there. Well, cool, guys. So that's kind of the rundown on some stuff. I got a couple of minutes here. If anybody has any other questions or anything, would be more than happy to answer. I've got a lot to say about this event, so I'll be doing a lot more over the next couple of days, couple of weeks, because I've learned a lot, and I do want to share what I've learned with you guys to help everybody collectively get stronger together, man. I mean, if you're somebody that's into strength training and strongman, like, we are truly all in this together. We're on the same team, even though some people like to act otherwise. What's next for me? I got a lot of things to work on. Like, I should continue to work on my mobility. I have specific things that I need for that. I need to work on my conditioning. I need to get a little bit leaner, but those are all things that are just process goals. So I'm not really necessarily gearing up for a specific competition at this moment in time, but I need to think about what is this package that I need to be in 1 year, and what are the habits that I need to carry over all of 2025 to go into that. So be making sure that I cut down on my body composition, improve my conditioning, and improve my mobility, because a lot of that other stuff is coming. Like, I already have the tools in place to be getting stronger, to be getting more muscular, and to be getting faster and fitter. So just a little more shifting into the leaner and more conditioned and more mobile. So I do plan on getting to USS Nationals at the end of June, but that's about 7 months out. So that's that. Got a couple competitions that I'll be running coming up in the spring, but we'll see, man. If there's a good competition that pops up, I do want to try and challenge myself here or there, but I'm not sure quite yet what that is. But because I placed in the finals and I got top 10, this does mean I automatically qualify for OSG 2025, wherever that may be. So I would like to do that again. I am going to be making more mobility programs. I'm actually going to be having a mobility and conditioning challenge program coming up in January. So great question. So now's my time too. If you're interested in some training programs, being a part of a strongman strength community, some coaching insights, I would like you to check out clubstrongman.com. We are still running a special with code FOUNDER for half off. So that's $25 a month. You can get that for the rest of your life membership, $25 a month for training programs. We're going to be doing a conditioning and mobility challenge starting in January. So go ahead and get in there, get ready for that. Sean, not only will there be a mobility program, but there's actually going to be full-blown yoga programs coming up at the end of this month too. Not just like a program for Train Heroic on your app, but there will actually be some follow-along videos for that. So there's really a lot of cool stuff coming in there. If you're not already on the inside, I know Chapel is, Robert Cole's in there, Sean Fennelly's in there. Come join us, clubstrongman.com. Again, use that code FOUNDER to get in. Robert Cole, last question. Any events from this that you will be putting in a comp? Spoiler, there will be a sandbag medley of sorts coming up in the spring. And I have been for some time I will just go ahead and say whatever. For the Fit Fest event in the fall, I do plan to have a Trump log in there. I've been thinking about that for some time. I think that's a really great style event. I just do. I love it so much. There'll be a Trump log situation in the fall. There's going to be a sandbag medley in the spring. That's all I can really say for now. But that's that. So, all right, guys, if you got any more questions, I'm going to give us about one more minute here. I've had a decent amount of people watching tonight. I really appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate you tuning in. And man, I'm very grateful for you guys. I've had a lot of support from a lot of people over the last, not just year, but last several years. So really awesome. Hope we all together get better and stronger. Trapper Kane is a great question, guy. The Trapper Kane. Shit, man. I got so much to say. I have so much to say. I could go on and on and on and on and on. What a freaking weekend, man. Really, really absolutely incredible. I hope you all get to, at some point in time, get a taste of this because it's addicting. You know, really good. All right, one more time, clubstrongman.com. Use code FOUNDER. Still running that special for half off for membership for a lifetime. That is that. I'm going to log off here. That's that. Got some more content and lots of cool stuff coming over the next week and month and this and that. So if you're local to Florida, still taking registrations until Friday for Hope for the Holidays. Next weekend, Saturday in Bradenton, Florida, you can Google Hope for the Holidays, Florida. It'll pop right up. It's the very first thing. Going to be a great competition. I know that Sean Fennelly is going to be there. Cole, are you going to be coming down for that one? Hope you can make it. And not sure who else, but it'll be a great time. We got almost 30 people. Chance to see a couple state and national records out there, but will be an awesome time. So, all right, guys, I'm calling it there. Have a great evening. Stay strong and have a championship day.